Hello, welcome to yet another episode of Disruption Talks, when we invite top experts to discuss digital acceleration, winning strategies, innovation, and product scaling. You will find all the episodes of Disruption Talks on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. My name is Ola Preis. I'm the head of growth at NetGuru, and my today's guest has over 15 years of experience as an entrepreneur and is from Montana. Those two pieces of information are very important because we will refer to them later on in the conversation. So it's my great pleasure to invite Stefanie Sample, the CEO and founder of Fundid. Hello, Stefanie.
Hello, so good to see you.
So good to see you too. It's been like 3 months since we met in New York City. How are you?
I'm good. I feel a little bit busier than when we met, but I'm doing good. How are you?
Fine, thank you. I've been missing actually our conversation, so I was really looking forward to seeing you again and having this conversation with a slightly different angle than the last time. So we know each other, of course, but let's not skip the introduction part for our audience. So would you be so kind as to introduce yourself just a little bit and tell us briefly what's Fundid all about?
Absolutely. So I am Stefanie Sample, like you mentioned, in Missoula, Montana. Um, and I've been an entrepreneur for 15 years, mostly in small business, like definitely love small business a lot. And then in the last year have been doing Fundid, which is a venture-backed fintech. And Fundid is really all about helping small business owners by simplifying business finance and access to capital.
Perfect. Right before we start into like our conversation and continue our conversation, one more detail, there will be a Q&A section at the end of our conversation. So if you'd like to ask Stefanie a question or maybe two questions, post them in the comment section in the chat, and then we will try to have them answered for you. Okay, so Stefanie, back in the New York City 3 months ago, you said that you wouldn't like to be referred as a female founder, but just, like a founder and the CEO. So I was wondering, how is it going with this goal of
Ha,
yours?
such a great question. I think that's a general sentiment right now, right? Is this idea of like, hey, if you look at female founders, we're actually outperforming male founders by 30%. So why do we need a special classification? I still very much feel that way. And, while I feel that way, and that's how I would like to be perceived in the world, how I perceive myself, how people close to me perceive me, I would say there's still a lot of barriers that are on women entrepreneurs. But the truth is there's barriers on every entrepreneur. There's always going to be an obstacle in a unique situation. So if my only obstacle is that I'm a female, I'll take that because I feel like I could work with that.
I mentioned in the beginning that you have over 15 years of experience as an entrepreneur. So what was this, journey of yours? You said just right here, right, basically a second ago, that the being a female founder is one of the obstacles, like it is one of obstacles you had. But are there any surprises? Did you have any surprises along your journey as an entrepreneur?
I mean, as an entrepreneur, you have a surprise just about every hour, if not sooner. So that is entrepreneurship, right? Like we know that it's a journey. It's not a straight path. And I think that successful entrepreneurs are really good at just embracing those surprises, embracing the journey, and not being so fixated on the destination. So I am constantly faced with surprises. I think back, I've been in several businesses, not just one that I've started, all small businesses, which means you're constantly getting surprises, whether it's like you're on vacation in a different country and your manager quits on you and you literally are now the manager of the store doing the schedule for the next day from a different country, which is just normal small business stuff. those surprises are why I love small business owners so much. Like they deal with an incredible amount of stress all the time, and they do it so well, which is really the coolest part about it. But I would say I literally have surprises by the moment. I'm sure I have one in my inbox that I just haven't seen yet today, and that later today I will too. But the thing about those surprises is that's what makes it exciting. I like it. I like the journey. I like the chaos. If anything, if it were like easy and boring and in operational mode, I probably would lose interest. So it's all about the surprises, really.
And are those surprises something that you actually expected, or or maybe the amount of surprises was actually a surprise also for you? Because for me, actually, when I became a head of a department, it was a surprise that this is actually about embracing surprises and embraces unexpected.
Sure. Yeah. So I think back to my very first business. I
Yeah.
launched a marathon bag company, and I went to the Las Vegas Marathon, bought an expo booth to sell them. And I would say the very, very first surprise I ever had as an entrepreneur was within an hour of being there and setting up. My credit card machine didn't work. And that was like before Square and all of these amazing tools now. You literally had like little portable credit terminals. And so I got there and I literally couldn't sell a bag, which, and so it's like from the first moment I got into entrepreneurship, I had these surprises and obstacles. I think I did know that that was part of what I was signing up for. I'm married to an entrepreneur too. It's been a big part of my world for a long time. So I kind of knew, I think I did know what I was getting myself into. Probably not to the extent, that you always hear, like, if I really understood how hard this would be, I wouldn't have done it. I think I still would have. The biggest
That's
surprise
brilliant.
always, around
That's a
people.
really beautiful testimonial.
Yeah, I mean, I always joke, like, people are like, "Oh, you're so young to be doing Fundid still. If you have an exit, would you do another one?" Like, and I think everyone's waiting for me to be like, "Oh God, no, this is like so much work." And I'm like, "Yeah, probably. I don't know." Like, I'd still do it, and I think I did know that that's what was coming and what I was signing up for.
Do you think that this is actually something that can be taught at school for future entrepreneurs or future managers or future aspiring founders or CEOs? Or is it something that, you should learn by doing, learn by experiencing, learn by the years of suffering,
Suffering. There you go. That's such a good question. And I don't know that there's any one right way to go about it. But when I really think about it, I'm in my nature, like by nature, I'm a pretty resilient person. And that's my natural state. And I don't know if you could tie it back to, experiences I've had in life, things I've had to overcome to be like, I'm not sure why I'm resilient, but I know I am. And I think that that's a key component of being an entrepreneur, and that it can be both just in someone. Like me, it was just there, and it could also be taught and learned. But if you think about just life in general, we all are constantly faced with obstacles, negative outcomes, things turning out one way when we thought they were going another way. And every time we have one of those obstacles, we get better at dealing with them. We're able to manage our emotions better through them, or to feel emotion through them. And that is the journey of entrepreneurship. It's just another life's obstacle. I think the bigger thing is, how do we teach that it's okay to go through obstacles and hard times? Like, how do we better prepare young people that are still in school to be in a tough situation, and instead of freaking out and thinking this is horrible, to take a moment and be like, oh, this is just life. What can I control? What decisions can I make? because at the end of the day, that skill set, it applies to entrepreneurship, it applies to being married, to having a
It's
job.
a very universal skill set.
Yeah, that I think it can be both just in someone and taught. The bigger question is the individual wanting that lesson in life and that experience and to adapt to that. Um, and it's fair that not all people would, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I feel that it actually been has been said a lot about the need of failures and the fact that failures make you harder and you learn from failures, and those are the most valuable lessons you can possibly have. But at
Yeah.
the same time, people are still getting frustrated about them, right? Or they are having problems with embracing like constructive feedback, and this is actually still an issue. At least I observe it as an issue. Do you have similar observations?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, failure is such a key component. And I even think, like, a venture backed company, you're held to a very high standard. Um, I am in awe and amaze of the like 22-year-olds starting venture backed companies that haven't really dealt with failures and then are successful. Like, that is super impressive. For me, I one of my past companies was really hard. Pretty much from day one, the economics weren't working out the way they were supposed to. From It was a retail business, so even like the cost of the build out was double what it was projected to be. The fixed costs ended up being higher than we had modeled out and were told. The retention and growth wasn't what it was supposed to be, and then when it went to operational mode, it was near impossible to break even and make a profit, which is really critical in small business. And pretty much every day was hard, and that was for 7 years. Um, I think I'd be really struggling right now that if I didn't have those 7 years where every day was so hard, because now a problem comes with my way and I'm like, oh, no problem, I could solve this. But me 5 years ago would be like really stressed out and it would keep me up at night. That if anything, I think a lot of like hard times in business in the past um, really prepared me for now doing something venture backed.
Okay. That's really good, because actually, and my next question was about like the recent situation, the recent economic, situation in the world. And I wanted to ask you how, do you feel about it with all the news going on about the recession, the possibility of, recession, about the layoffs in tech companies. So what's on your mind right now, as the CEO of a tech company?
Sure. Well, one, I'm like pre-hiring a lot of people. And I have a really small team and we were coming off of a really hard time to hire in the US. In the past, I've gotten really lucky this past year, and because we have an amazing team at Fundid. We don't deserve most of the people. They're way too talented to be working with us. But it's really our mission that has always attracted our talent, which I think is a huge testament to having a mission-driven company. Although if someone's trying to create a mission-driven company just to attract talent, I'm not sure that's the right approach. But it is kind of a funny time. Like, it feels like all anyone talks about is this impending recession, all these topics that in the tech world and venture world feel very real. But I have a few thoughts on it. One, I'm a small business owner at heart. I still own small businesses. And some of the leading topics around what's going on in the world, I'm not feeling as a small business owner. And so I think they're almost comical in the venture world when we talk about them so confidently. Supply chain, which seems to be a big indicator of this impending recession, has been a problem for 2.5 years, like since
So
the
it's
pandemic
no longer
started.
a novelty
Like,
for
we're
you.
literally coming out the other side of it right
Yeah.
now, not going into it in a lot of ways. The rising food costs have always been up and down for a really long time. And as they go up, costs go up, and so does pay. So, that's just the way our world has always worked. But when I think about running Fundid, we serve small businesses. And small businesses, rightfully so, have strong feelings against banks and any financial partner in hard times because people disappear. Just like, a lot of venture is disappearing on founders right now. And so I think founders are now
Yeah.
going to share that sentiment of small business owners, where the people we serve at Fundid, they need us the most right now. If we pull back, what message does that send them to our
Yeah.
commitment to them? Like, I think right now
It's
is
like
the
the ultimate motivation right now, right?
yeah, like we need to be all in with them right now. We need to accelerate our product because we really view specifically our card product as something that these small business owners they're already being declined in the market for them. And so it's even more important for us to get our card to market quick, to get innovative lending products to them quickly, to get them the resources and information they need to navigate this. Because, like pretty much all hard times in the US, small business owners are going to carry a lot of that weight, and that pressure is going to be mostly on them. And all of the financial products they've relied on are going to, quickly turn on them very quickly. So my view is it's a really good time to double down. I know I share that sentiment with NetGuru, which is why you all are
Yeah.
such great partners, is there's always winners and losers in every market. And the sentiment out there right now is as if there's only losers, which is never true. So I actually feel pretty good about it. I'm always cautious, but honestly, like you hear a lot about startups, cutting expenses, cutting employees.
Yeah.
I'm a small business owner at heart. I've always been really good at managing my expenses. Like we would like kind of look to see what we could cut. And like our biggest like aha moment was like, we could go from Zoom to Google Meet and save like $150. Like, so I think I build companies that are resilient no matter what the economy is. And you always want to know what those levers are. But that's important to me no matter what.
Yeah, definitely. About the sentiment, you mentioned that we share the sentiment, and I fully agree with this because, yeah, everything slows down right now, and we see this market downturn. But we really, really believe that this is actually not only, a threat, but also an opportunity. Opportunity, to try and make a more resilient company. Basically, you said that already as well, and also take a leap into the future and basically even more focus on delivering business value, focusing on basically making exactly what's needed, basically to build this future advantage, right? So yeah, it's
Yeah,
actually about innovating faster, not slowing down when the recession is, just around the corner.
definitely. I think we're going to end up with better companies.
Yes.
There are so many artificial companies out there that are really just backed by way too much capital, where they force success. This time of refinement, I think great companies like Fundid that are mission driven, really focusing on their users, shouldn't worry about anything because that's going to come to light really quickly. And consumers deserve good companies. Like
Of
consumers
course.
don't need great marketing always shoved in their face for subpar products. I think this is really a good time for consumers.
Yeah, perfect. I fully agree with this. Also for us as basically people making those products, right, to focus more on the end consumer and getting familiar with their needs actually, because we will have to eventually focus on the core of their needs. So yeah, this is an opportunity. I would like to perceive it always as an opportunity. Maybe this is me being resilient as well. Yeah, and I know that right now you are in Salt Lake City, right?
I
And
am.
it's early morning because only I am here in a very comfortable situation talking to you, after my afternoon coffee, and you had to, wake up really, really early today, as you said. So I wanted to ask you about something that was part of a great discussion of my team today about your routine as a founder of, such a resilient and successful founder. So could you share, shed some light on your routine?
Yeah, definitely. Well,
Yeah.
my Missoula, Montana culture of kind of a hippie community is really going to come out in this. Because at the end of the day, before I kind of share the details, I'm a really big believer in following my energy, which like very hippie, like out there philosophy. But I just really believe that when we're in tune with ourselves, we kind of know how to flow really well. And it's like, I've never been a believer of like blocking time on my calendar to review a bank agreement. I'm more productive if I like use that time and whatever I'm gravitated towards in like the master scope of what I have to do. So there you go. Like follow your energy is the short of it. But the details are that I am like a proud mom of 2 girls and a CEO. I think the two go together really well because like early mornings, like I'm a parent, like every parent wakes up early in the morning. I have for 10 years now. And so now I'm used to it. And I started waking up really early in the morning just because it was like the only time I could drink coffee without a kid like bugging me, because at the end of the day, like kids wake up before you and you're like screwed when your kid wakes up before you because it starts your day off with this like whining sound. This is my experience, of course, not projecting onto anyone else. So I typically am an early bird in my routine. I like to wake up super early. I don't set an alarm. I almost like don't believe in alarms, except for early morning flights, which really shouldn't exist in the world. They're like the worst thing ever. So I wake up on my own every morning. That can be extremely early. And I like to get up and drink coffee on my couch. And usually within 20 minutes, I have my laptop open because my mind is going. And that is usually my most productive time of the day where I, respond to a ton of Slack messages. I work on models that cause me to do a little bit more deeper thinking because I don't have anything on my calendar. But usually pretty much every day though, still early in the morning, I stop after about an hour and I go and work out. I really like to run outside. There's just something I've tried to do like indoor workouts and weight train with my husband and all of that. But for me, going running is more about like decompressing and stress release and thinking actually like a lot of like my decisions for Fundid are an outcome of those runs, which I'm sure my marketing team hates. Like I come back from a run and like unload on them on Slack of all these things I'm thinking about. And then I get ready and spend an hour with my girls. That's about when I get back from my morning run is usually when they're up. And I like to spend that whole hour between them waking up and them going to school just with them and hanging out. Like it's kind of our family time. Like we don't do dinner a lot together. And so we spend that hour getting ready together. I really like it. And then I'm off to work. And like so many people in the world, I am pretty much on Zoom all day. It's crazy, this world we live in. But that's what I signed up for. And that's kind of what it takes. I totally want to call this out that I'm in no way saying that people should do what I do. Again, I think following our own energy, like knowing, are we a morning person? Are we a night person? Like what works for the other things in my life, like my kids' schedule. Those are all such important factors. And I think it's more about like people, just doing what they want and putting their blinders on to what everybody else does. And, like don't even think about what, someone else does as their schedule versus you, because there's always this feeling that maybe I'm doing it wrong or I'm not working right. And I know like I have zero interest in feeling that way. I have enough stress.
And is this advice of following your energy paths, is this something that you apply also for your team?
Yeah, we try to. I mean, my team,
How do you
they're all,
align, if there are
yeah.
some owls, some early birds on the other hand,
Yeah. So what I in an ideal world, I would want my team to be able to set their own expectations around all of that. The problem with Zoom and time zones is a
yeah,
tricky one to solve. So how we're going about that to create as much flexibility as possible is that our team is available for meetings between 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. And outside of that, they don't have to be available, which creates that flexibility to start work early or work later or be in a different time zone. Um, it, this is, we try really hard for that. But I also want to call us out. Getting a product to market is really freaking hard. And it involves an insane amount of meetings, especially a card
yeah.
product. So I would say I'd get like a C minus on that right now. Like I am not like any gold standard on this. Like we meet a lot all the time outside of those windows. But that's what we're striving for though.
And you have an internal team and an external team. So, what advice would you give to other founders on basically building a team of both internal and external experts, agencies, and setting up the structure for the company that follows the energy? Actually, I don't want to I'm not laughing. I'm doing the same for myself. So this is pretty serious question.
Yeah. Well, I think you attract a certain kind of person as a CEO, as a company, like culture, right? Really comes into play. And we've been so lucky in that we've just found the right fit people that align so well. And then it's easy. You don't have to do much. They own it themselves, they do their thing. So I would just say, like, we're super lucky to have a team that also values these things, that can take on a lot of stress, but also still be really quirky and fun about it. And but building a team is really hard, especially in this climate. The mission, like I said earlier, is so critical in finding the right people for your team. And that's where I've been so lucky from our internal team, which is about 9 people now. And they are spread out all over the US. We have a strong contingent of, I think, 4 in Missoula, Montana, where I'm from. But the rest are all over the country. And so I really focus on hiring mission aligned first and foremost. We because of the mission of the segment that we serve with Fundid, which is companies with under 10 employees, we attract a lot of women from fintech, which is awesome. Because most of the businesses we serve are women-owned businesses. Because if you look at the segment of all women-owned businesses in the U.S., 98% have under 10 employees. So by
Yeah, there are
solving,
over 13 million businesses owned by
yes,
women. Yeah.
yep, and 98% of those have under 10 employees. And so we have that kind of going for us, where we attract a different kind of person. Then if you look at fintech, and I mean, there's a lot of amazing fintech, so this is not a jab at anyone, but they're like mostly white dudes. And I love white dudes, like I'm married to one, but when you have a bunch of like young white dudes running fintech companies, and you have these like very experienced, super qualified women working there that are in, like, let's just call it bro cultures, if that were a thing, it's pretty easy to attract that talent into a different type of culture that is definitely female friendly, parent friendly. Like, we're about to have an all team in Montana, and we're like arranging for camp for our chief risk officer's kid, and planning even our day around when she has pickup and drop off for the camp. I think that's an example of like something that just
Perfect.
naturally comes from another parent too, but that's true of our culture, that might be unique and attract talent. But I want to say one other thing on this though. There has now been fintech in the market long enough. There are people out there that have already lived the experience. And so my last few hires came from other fintechs, and their knowledge is invaluable. So I would say right now, my hiring focus is very much looking for people that have already launched a fintech, similar, have already experienced all of the barriers, know what it's like. There's a value there that just can't be replaced, and I very much want to find more of those people.
Perfect. And when it comes to the industry, because you mentioned the industry and the fact that there are so many women owned businesses and they are so underserved. So what challenges actually they have to face?
I mean, endless challenges, and not just because of their gender. Like I said earlier, every entrepreneur is going to have obstacles, is going to have challenges. Everyone has a unique situation. And women are just right there too. It's just one of those sets. For women, there's a lot of, pressure around parenting that withholds them. I think there's a societal message that's still being sent that women can start businesses, but they should, start the kind where you can still take your kid to school every day and pick them up at 3. And so it's a part-time business. I don't think that message is intentional. And honestly, even as a woman small business owner, I put that on myself a lot too. Like early on as an entrepreneur, I kind of felt like, oh, like I have kids now and I'm an entrepreneur. Like, what is a business I could do where I could be around my kids? And nobody put that on me. Sure, society probably has those messages surrounding me, but I myself felt like that was the right thing to do, almost like I was selfish if I wanted to pursue something bigger. And that's just an internal battle I think that a lot of women face. And we don't really know
And
how to
also a
do it.
huge burden, right? And huge
Yeah.
sense of remorse. I personally haven't experienced this yet, but I can feel the pain already.
Yeah, and it's a lot when you feel like you're a bad person for prioritizing your company over your kids. So having a good partner is usually key to that. I have a partner that's so supportive, like my number one fan, always pushing me to do whatever, and that's really helpful. But I think it's better to ignore all of the articles on the barriers for women. Like, it's like, don't even click on those articles or read them, because it puts doubts into your mind that none of us need. And we just don't need that message being sent to us all the time. Like, it was so crazy when I was raising my seed round of funding. The most common like text or article I'd get from friends and people were like essentially articles on how it shouldn't be possible for me to raise a seed round. And I'm like, not helpful. Like, I already know the data. I don't need more of it. It's better, like, because positive energy is so important that it's better to just assume like, it's fine. Of course, people are going to fund me, and my gender has nothing to do with it. But you start being like, oh, I have a meeting. Is this going to hold me back because I'm a woman? Like, what a horrible thing to have stuck in your head. Like, and we all know women are going to end up running the world pretty shortly anyways. So it's like, let's just
Definitely.
put that aside and start the on ramp to this next phase that we're all about to be in.
Yeah. So, what do you think we should actually, put as a priority? Like, what the market should put as a priority to, fix this horrible status quo and,
Sure.
make the playing field a little bit more even for both genders?
Yeah. Well, I think it's that in every single aspect. One, small business is super female friendly. 43% of businesses in the US are female owned, because there's not a lot of external needs when you're a small business owner. And so you don't necessarily need those like male relationships all the time in order to start and run your business. So that's great. um in the venture world, it's at every level, right? There's no quick fix. We need more women LPs, we need more women VCs, we need more women founders at every level. But when I think about the benefit to female founders in the venture world, I really think that women out there struggling with the gender pay gap, or even like that ability to be a parent and a great worker, they should intentionally seek out working for women. Because one, those women, like, there's so much amazing talent. They're going to be better, taking care of working for a woman, and it's going to change the landscape when all of the talent wants to work for female founded companies. Not always true, right? That's a stereotype that I'm proposing, but it's tough, and I like don't have space in my life to like care at this point, because what's so annoying about the US is that gender issues are always put on the gender, or either been the minority of any way in question. Like, this idea that women need to solve this problem is the dumbest thing ever, right? Like, it's like, actually, I think that maybe not women are the problem here. But yet we're the ones that like go to webinars on how to overcome it, and that, there's a lot of really amazing males, of people that don't even identify with gender out there that are interested in being allies, but we need them to take action and be allies, to work with us and work together to think about their hiring practices. Like, in the startup world, it's so common to hire your friends and the friends of your employees. Well, if your friends are like 5 other white dudes, like, what do you think your company is going to look like if those are your hiring practices? And the same is true with us, right? Like, we need to think about those things too, because I don't think the goal is like just to get a bunch of females in there. I think the goal is diversity in general. Like, we want diverse backgrounds, diverse incomes, like, because especially in finance, hiring people that come from diverse backgrounds financially adds so much value, because someone that grew up really poor has a different experience than someone that grew up wealthy and started a business, and those insights all lead to better products.
You mentioned the hiring and the need for more diversity. What other actions can the market focus on to make it better?
I wish I knew. Like, it's so interesting, because if you ask, like, even companies with horrible metrics, a lot of times they think that they're doing all of the right things, right? Like, it's not like, I don't think that anyone out there is like, I know what I'm going to do, create a company that has horrible diversity metrics. Like, it's never like anyone's goal, but it does happen. And so I think being just really aware of it, I think it's better handled in the private sector. Like, I don't think like these like government backed regulations are the solution, because no one wants to be like charity metric. And we don't need that. Like, we have plenty of super talented, diverse people in the world that we don't need to be a diversity metric, because we can hold our own just fine. I really wish I knew this answer. I just know that I'm doing my best, and I think talking about it more and encouraging other people to do their best too is actually pretty good. Like, just wanting to be better.
Yes, of course. And putting aside for a second this female angle, and moving back to the underserved entrepreneurs and basically small businesses, what challenges do they have, and what difficulties they have to face in the US right now?
Yeah, so many. So Fundid, we decided to specifically serve businesses with under 10 employees, because it's this segment that is essentially like, there's almost a sentiment in the market that they're unservable. Like, they aren't worth the energy. Like, we can't find the margin if we help them. Yet, of the 32 million businesses in the US, it makes up 26 million of them. So it doesn't take
Quite a lot.
yeah, it's a lot. It doesn't take a rocket science to figure out, like, actually, it's just a scale issue. Like, you have to do it at scale on a low margin, and you can, in fact, solve it. It's just that it's hard. And so you have to want to solve it when you do things on the margin. But for small businesses out there, especially this under 10, it is the most underserved segment. I would say actually the biggest issue is money and finance, which is why we got into this. Fundid started as a nonprofit just to help entrepreneurs. And I quickly learned like there is a lot of great resources out there, great educational experiences. But what they really need is capital. Like I always joke, like, I want to start a business and I get referred to like 12 different like programs that are going to teach me how to do one. My husband wants to start a business and the bank just gives him money. Like, I'm like, wait, was I programmed wrong? Like, why was he programmed to know how to do it without one of these 12-week programs to teach you how to be an entrepreneur? So I really think money is the biggest problem. And it's not just getting money, it's like the understanding of business finance, the simplification of it. We produce a lot of great content, and like, for
It's a
example,
basic education, right?
yeah, but in a different way. It's answering the real questions they have, not these
Yeah.
general like how to be a business owner. Like our top rated piece of content is, can I get an EIN without being an LLC, which is like such a gold business term. But just answers. So when we're building out our platform with funded capital and our business building card, our business charge card for these businesses, we're thinking a lot about how do we just simplify business finance for them. So it's not just getting them access to capital, but then simplifying it all too.
So I bet that given your resilience and optimistic, approach towards difficulties, I bet that all of those challenges you perceive as opportunities that are ahead of Funded. Am I right?
Definitely. Yes, of course. Because you look at this and it is challenging to solve in that it is a low margin business model. So it has to be done at scale. But luckily for me, there's 26 million opportunities out there. And like, I think it's like 2,000 new businesses are created every day. So that's fine. But doing things at scale is hard. Building a financial product is really expensive. So in like the venture world, especially when there's so many SaaS products out there where they can launch like an MVP product with, a couple $1,000,000 and get traction and revenue. A financial product is a really heavy lift on the front end. It costs a lot. And so for us, it's just kind of getting past the start line is such a challenge because it costs so much. And then there's this sentiment in the venture world that like these small businesses aren't worth helping, that there's not enough money to be made when that's not true at all. But we are taking the opportunity no matter what, because I believe that at the end of the day, it's definitely solvable to simplify business finance and access to capital for them. I think fintech's the right place to do it because data is at the core of solving this. And the underwriting model is all about being like exclusively focused on solving for this segment and essentially like putting your blinders on to the temptation of the easier path, which we see so many competitors in our space, especially the card space, do. Is they're like, oh wow, this is really hard, so we're just going to serve a bigger business because then we could have less of them and make more money. Clearly there's no like deep desire for mission when you do that, right? Like we have the deep desire of mission to solve for this segment. And so staying committed to them is definitely part of how we solve and where the solution is and where the opportunity is. And we think that the opportunity is really massive too.
Yeah. And when it comes to the challenges, you mentioned only one so far. So do you see any more challenges that, may hamper your growth? Especially now,
Yes.
with the in the light of the recession.
Yeah, no, there's so many challenges. Rising interest rates. So the cost of capital for us right now is higher, which means our margin's even smaller. So as interest rates rise in the US, we have to be really, really good at managing our expenses and costs associated with that, so that we could reallocate that capital to interest expenses that are very like volatile and we don't really know where they're going. So that's a huge one. Our biggest constraint is capital. For example, today we have over 10,000 people on our wait list. But it will cost essentially, like if we were to onboard all of them, we would need like $50 million just because of the capital you need in reserve to secure your card with your bank partner, with your capital partner. So our biggest constraint and challenge with Fundid is actually the amount of capital we have to how many customers we could onboard and help. But that's okay. Like we could overcome that, right? Like we can take control over that. I think there's challenges in just being in a venture-backed company, the expectations around that, while we think about it in the market as this way to accelerate and have massive outcomes, I think it also artificially creates failures where companies don't necessarily need to fail or should fail, but just because of the model of venture, it forces them to. So I think that challenge and our need to be really strategic about that and make sure that we don't become part of this statistic in this world that was built for this interesting way of doing things that it doesn't necessarily need to be true, which is actually a really great thing of what's going on in the market right now with VC kind of, telling startups to cut costs, to start looking towards profitability, something like we never used to hear. I actually think all these startups are going to overcome this, and then the landscape will be different, and hopefully an outcome will be less startups actually fail. I'm guessing that means the investor returns will potentially go down, which is not the goal either. But it will probably still be at about the same rate of outcomes. It's just more might make it and not fail. I don't know. We'll see. But that's a challenge for us, is just how the venture world works, and them being a financial product, because sometimes a financial product can sometimes sit in this gray zone between venture and traditional finance.
Yes.
Yeah. And then, I mean, there's little things every day, like lawyers not responding fast enough, and, like unforeseen outcomes of a development sprint, and connections dropping, and like, it's like endless challenges.
I was wondering actually, is it hard for you, as a founder, as a fintech business, basically founder, to work with vendors, especially, legal vendors or banking as a service providers? Is it a challenge right now, or maybe there are so many vendors that you are, always able to find the perfect match?
Yeah, it's a massive challenge. So in fintech, specifically in the card space, you have a laundry list of outside vendors. Because, if you really like simplify it, most of fintech is done through APIs, which means you're more orchestrating the right product for your segment by connecting the right APIs and partners into your platform to serve them. And very seldomly, actually, are you solely building any of that, right? Like, I can't just build a core, especially at an MVP. And so I have a partner there. The biggest challenge is they all have different timelines, and they don't necessarily know how they overlap with a dependency timeline. Like, for us, we have to work with a network, with a bank, with a processor, with decisioning platforms. I think we have probably 10 vendors that are all very critical. And the dependencies that all rely on each other is really tough. So being hyper organized is really critical, which our team is. Like, we're probably annoyingly, we're the kind of people that would color code our kitchen with labels, so it works out fine. But it's really hard to just know where everything's at and what relies on what and how it all connects.
And as a founder, I can imagine that you are involved in very meticulous process of taking product decisions, right? Because you have to ultimately make a product that fits the group. And with so many challenges and so many difficulties with, navigating the ocean of vendors and the laundry list, as you call it. I really like this expression, by the way. Is it hard for you to choose between, how much time do I have to spend on ideation, or how much time do I have to spend on, validating the final delivery? Do you have to sacrifice, those stages, while doing product
Yeah,
decisions, or?
definitely.
Yeah.
I'm just one of 9 people on an amazing team that all contribute to this. And I would say our users drive our product roadmap the most. We've always had a really great user feedback loop where our thank you page for our grant match program has always been a survey, which has led to customer interviews and really understanding like what is a nice to have, what is a need to have. And then how do we make those decisions? And it usually takes a lot of debate, but it comes back to the customer. Like so many, I think my MVP is okay. Like, me as the founder, I would like spend, $20 million just in development in the first year to
Of
create the right
course,
product.
like the perfect one. I mean, the
That's
ultimate
right.
MVP.
Yeah. And like instead every day they're like, we have to cut this and put on the backlog. Our backlog must be like an entire software system. It's so big. So there's a lot of sacrifices, but I think that how I think about it is earning the right to serve the segment we want to serve. And so I think about it more in a disciplined way of you have to prioritize your product roadmap, the way you roll things out, into having the most de-risked path into ultimately serving your most underserved customer, but not necessarily starting there, which is really hard, right? When you're so mission driven, although our whole base is underserved. And so for me, it's like, okay, can I sacrifice this feature or this piece of the product because it's going to de-risk our next 6 months so that we can be a little bit more risky, underwrite someone with a little bit less monthly revenue. But if we started at the most risky, we might not ever get to actually serve them because we might not make it. So that's how I think of prioritizing and making those decisions.
Yeah, it's a constant juggle of priorities and values and dreams. Yeah, I have to admit this really sounds really challenging. Okay, Stefanie, one more question before we move to the questions from the audience, and this is a question that we ask all our guests on Disruption Talks. So imagine a situation in which you have a magic wand and you could cast a spell, and with this spell you can teach every 12-year-old person in the States one thing. You can make impact on the educational system, change it, and teach them something. What would you teach them?
Soft skills,
Soft
without a doubt.
skills.
I don't think it's like how to budget better or create a better business plan. I'm a really big believer in soft skills and emotional intelligence and resilience building activities of just being able to be in a tough situation and acknowledge it, but not panic, and then see the path forward. Like those, like, so the ability to interact with people and then the ability to like mentally manage tough situations, I think would benefit our world in general and create a lot of positive outcomes in every industry and every role and every job. So it's actually more around just like how to like handle life better, maybe it's like more mental wellness. I don't know what I would call it, but
And resilience.
yes.
Okay, so thank you very much. I'm moving to the questions from the audience. And the first question is from Agnieszka. Agnieszka asks, being a CEO and a woman requires so much effort, especially in those challenging times. How do you deal with stress?
I just don't think about it. And I'm totally honest. Like, it's like the world is challenging. It's always challenging. Different seasons of life are challenging. Like right now, the economy is challenging, but the last business I started while having 2 kids, and that was a different kind of challenging. That I would say my morning run, but I do just kind of like fake it. Not fake it, but like I'm just like, ugh, I have to pretend like this doesn't exist and not acknowledge it and just like control what I can and not and find a way to not let the other stuff stress me out. But I mean, I don't have a good answer is the truth. Like it's hard.
You just have to get going, right? Not
Yep.
focusing on being stressed. Okay, so the next question comes from Radek, and it's about the origins of Fundid. So could you please tell me how the Fundid idea started? What inspired you to create the company?
Sure. I mean, it's just 15 years of being a small business owner, knowing the challenges, having a lot of friends starting businesses, and then being at a place in life where I was exiting one company, had time on my hands, and was just in a place of life of being like, I really want the next thing I do to be really meaningful, to have a really big impact. So I was at a stage in my own journey where I was seeking out doing something that was really meaningful, and I've always gravitated towards entrepreneurship, and I knew capital was the big issue to solve.
Okay. The next question comes from Zosia. Do you have any advice for young women entrepreneurs who would like to build their careers?
Do things you don't think you're qualified for. That is being an entrepreneur or even being in a career. Is this like almost naive view of like, I don't know how to do that, but I'm going to figure it out by 5 p.m. And, that willingness to always be trying things that you feel like you're maybe not qualified to do and just do them anyways. And don't ever like ask for permission to do those things. Like just go out and try and see what happens.
And start before you feel ready.
Yes.
Rafał asks about the article by Amy O'Brien on Sifted. With the most recent figures for European fintech show investment slowing from 2021 highs, more proof that the sector is feeling a chill amid the fall in tech stocks. So what may be the impact of the current situation on empowering the underserved? Can you see any new opportunities that come along?
Well, specific to the underserved, if we look at COVID as an indicator of right now, which I think is a good indicator, unsurprisingly, when COVID hit, investment into minorities and women pretty much dried up. It's funny how, as a society, we tend to go back to our natural state when we're scared. And that's what we saw in COVID is investors quit writing checks to women and minorities. I think that there's going to be an article, I'm sure within a year, that the same thing happened right now in the market, that investment overall probably stayed about flat, maybe dipped a little bit, but investment specifically into underserved founders will dry up, which is super unfortunate. But I really don't have an answer because this market is changing so fast. And right now it feels somewhat not appropriately changing. Like there's a lot of emotions driving the state of the existing market because remember, we're in like right now an impending recession, but people's behavior is as if we're in a recession.
Yeah. Yeah, the recession can be caused by people being afraid of the recession possibility, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and the last question, somehow related to the previous one from 2 minutes before. Kasia asks, do you remember any advice that you received during your career that you regret that you followed?
I think it took me too long to be comfortable in my own skin. I think I tried to fit in mostly to the male business world for a really long time and never was just like my true self and being like authentic. I wish I would have done that from day one. I regret that it took me so long to just be myself, specifically in business settings.
Thank you so much, both for the answer, the honest answer, and for the beautiful episode. I'm looking forward to the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you.